Well, welcome everybody. So excited to be here with Amber Vilhauer, which sounds like willpower, which is a great nickname for her. So excited to be with you here today, Amber, and welcome everybody who is joining us. We are going to have a powerful conversation today.
Yes, we are. Thanks so much, Phil. You're the best. Oh my gosh.
Oh, well, thank you. And I remember your response when I played you a song for your birthday, I think.
I was literally just thinking that. That's why it takes my words away just even thinking about that. I was in Belize alone on my birthday to celebrate. That was by choice. And I got your video and I just was floored. I mean, absolutely. I was like, can I share this everywhere? It meant so much to me. I felt so valued. It was the best.
Well, it's interesting. I try to do it every day. It doesn't happen every day, but I make it a goal. If I have a conversation where I feel like I want to remember the conversation, or I feel like there's a way that I can, encourage or bless that person, it's just like this personal goal of a way that I can show up in a unique way. But for you, it actually goes back to the very first time you and I met. I don't know if you remember this, but I've talked about it in other places. So I think I have reminded you, but I actually had this happen this week with another person, but only the second person where this has ever happened on Zoom.
Oh,
You
really?
showed up.
Second?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, you're not the only one anymore. Sorry, Amber, but you're the best because you're the first.
No, I'm just thinking we need more people to hear about this. So please continue with the story.
Well, and I think this will relate to our conversation. So we'll formally start the interview in just a minute, but I don't remember how long ago this was. At least a couple of years ago, we have John Berghoff in common, and somewhere through those connections, someone suggested that we meet. I don't even remember.
Well, I actually think in the social media marketing world days, like I knew of you back then. Maybe we hadn't like strictly communicated or over some emails perhaps, but this was like long overdue. We're getting into a Zoom room and it was like, hi, how are ya?
All right. But here's what you did that blew my socks off. So, I blew your socks off with my horn, but you blew my socks off by the way you showed up. So you had cleared your desk. Yep. You were dressed for the occasion. Your backdrop was beautiful like it is right now, but your presence is what I remember. Like the way that you were when you showed up, like there was nothing else going on. There was no conversations happening, no kids, nothing else in your brain was taking place. You were 100%, and there go all the balloons. You're 100% ready for the conversation. And it took me off guard.
It did.
I don't expect that. I don't show up like that. And I don't usually show up with anyone else that's like that. Like you're usually showing up late and you're like, I don't know.
Hey, how are you? I'm good. How are you? Good. Okay. Now what are we here to? It's like distracted chaos kind of, it's.
Well, our brains are in this constant state of distraction. Yeah. And you showed up with an intention to serve me, which really caught my attention and said, man, we need more people, like you said, to show up that way, whether it's in person or online, and especially online, because in person, it's a little bit easier. Although we've both been to the networking events where the other person is clearly looking for the next person to talk to. Happened to me this morning at breakfast.
I know. It's such an icky feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so thank you for setting that example. And I think, as it relates to this conversation about creating impactful events and your book about infinite impact, I think when people show up with intention and when you design an event on purpose with intention, then you're going to create the space where those kind of powerful interactions take place. So that, to me, that's the goal, but maybe I'll let you say it the way you would. How do you define infinite impact in just like in a nutshell? How do you think that does relate to an event?
The goal here is in those tiny moments where you can make a difference. So in this instance, Phil, you came into the Zoom room And I said, Phil, how you doing? And it was something like, I'm good. How are you? Because that's what we normally do. And I said, whatever I said at the moment, but I'll actually track it into today's conversation with somebody. They said, good. They weren't even smiling. Good. You like, let's get this over with. Like the checkbox of the how are you question. And I said, you know what? And I paused and I searched for a moment. I said, I'm feeling so grateful right now. And I didn't even leave it there. I kept going for about a minute and a half. Because if you're going to ask me that question, I'm going to answer it honestly. And I went on this whole thing about how I am being called into so many different rooms right now. And I'm speaking like crazy because of the message and the perfect timing of it all. And how when I'm in these rooms, I'm seeing people so like frozen over and coping and autopilot and just they're hardened. And I come in and I just breathe life into that room. And you can literally watch as people, it just washes over them, almost like they're coming out of a dizzy spell. And it's like all of a sudden they're just so grateful and present and they're reciprocating this incredible energy. And it's literally just because of how I started the moment, right? Instead of like, oh, I'm good, Phil. How are you doing? It's like, no, I'm going to tell you how grateful I am. And then I'm going to tell you where it comes from because that is a moment of impact. And we can take this from a Zoom meeting all the way into an event, Phil. But
Yes.
really, back in your personal experience of this, that tiny, seemingly nothing decision that I made to just drop in how I was actually feeling to you created infinite impact. Because here's what Phil did. Not only did it activate him, and now in every single Zoom call, he shows up differently. Then he takes it a step further. And I've seen you make a couple posts on social media like, you know what? I got to just say this again. Do you know this call I had with Amber Vilhauer? And then what happens is everybody who speaks with Phil and everybody who engages in those social posts, they have a moment of impact. And the ripple literally goes out into infinity through all of these people. And we're so stuck in the online world right now, Phil, of like, it's about the number of people you know and the number of followers and the number of your 7 figures in your business. I think it's about the quality. It's the quality of the moment. And if I can have a quality moment with one individual who then spreads my message in the way that Phil has, what? That's amazing. So that's really some more of the backstory. That's what Infinite Impact starts to do. It really teaches you how to get into alignment so you can show up and really savor each moment. Because I mean, that's really our opportunity and the fulfillment you get on the other side. My gosh, it's an incredible feeling of deep fulfillment every day.
Wow. Yeah, I love where you went with that because the deep impact that you make on one person and the ripple effect that can have is way greater than if you start going for the masses right away. Um, I I don't know. I forget if you're a spiritual person or not, but
I
it
am.
really for that. Well, I've got an interesting story because I was praying about my business a couple weeks ago,
Mm.
and what I heard while I was praying was, "Go serve this one customer that you already have, and don't worry about the customers that you don't have yet." Which is kind of
Whoa.
the thing, right? It's
Whoa.
like, go serve the socks off this guy and his business and his event and make that as impactful as you can.
Yeah.
Um, don't worry. The other stuff's gonna come when, when I'm ready, for it to come, which I think it sounds like a very similar principle of what you've learned.
Yeah. We have to earn it. We have gotten lazy, and there are a lot of influencers that have improperly taught us to put up a sexy marketing headline and push people through a funnel with a tripwire and a 72 email sequence, and we can just sit back and collect fat checks. And I've been over here for 17 years, Phil, just like,
Mm,
No. That is not the way. Now, my clients know that. I mean, I'm a strategist at heart. I'm a books and business strategist. I launch books, I build businesses, I optimize them. And all of my practices, everything I teach is this bedrock of how we treat people, really showing up to help each individual feel heard, seen, and valued. And if we do that, in that moment of impact, it can be just a second smiling when they weren't expecting it. It's not like a huge effort. It takes no time, money, or hardly any energy. But in that moment of impact, it shifts the way that they feel. And in an environment right now where mistrust is at an all-time high, we don't know who or what to trust with the rise of AI and disillusionment and misinformation and deep fakes and everything else that's going on. All we really know to trust at the end of the day is our emotional guidance system. And if Phil comes into my room and says, gives me a warm smile, he's present with me, he exchanges something meaningful to me, my emotional guidance system says, he's my people. I want to move forward with him. I'm not going to forget him. And I'm going to start telling everybody else about Phil because there are few people in the world like Phil and he has value. And it makes me more valuable to my community to recommend him forward in the sea of uncertainty and questionable service providers. And so I think the calling, Phil, that a few of us leaders are feeling is to cut ties with the old ways of marketing because they're not working and there are businesses everywhere proving that all day long right now. The new way is in these genuine moments of authentic service. And when you connect with people, word of mouth activates, and you don't have to worry where your next client is coming from. It's no longer, what can I get out of this moment? It's what can I give? And if you show up in that heart, people will feel it. They won't forget it. And you will be protected in the end. I've proven it over and over and over again.
I love that. I was going to read this later, but there was something you wrote in your book that supports what you were just talking about. And you have this principle we'll talk about later of congruence. But you said something that stopped me in my tracks and is
well, what the heck was it?
You said millions of authors are unintentionally but irresponsibly rushing to market and slapping generic content out to the world, hoping to help people, yet they haven't done the work to properly prepare. They're not ready. The outcome is a dud of a book, and shall we say a dud of an event, and a social media channel that looks and sounds like everyone else. When they don't get the results they hope for, they experience a whole lot of emotional baggage, et cetera, et cetera. And when I read that, I was like, okay, stop it. I know I didn't just throw a book together and you didn't either, but it's so tempting to want to get it out quickly instead of doing the work. And let's shift our focus to events, because I think events are a great place for us to talk about. And that's what my audience comes to me for. And there's a bridge between our worlds because you do events, you speak at events, you know events pretty well. So I'd like to really talk about how do we design events with intention so that we can create these deep moments of impact within them that will scale ultimately. But it sounds to me like already you're telling me your initial goal isn't worrying about the scale, it's worrying about the depth of impact. Is that a fair summary of what you're saying so far?
Well, I mean, if you focus in on the micro impact that you want to have to meet people's needs, impact is inevitable. Revenue is inevitable. So I think the challenge that a lot of event planners and entrepreneurs in general are facing is like, where do I even put my attention, Phil? Because it's like there's so much coming at me all the time and everybody needs something from me. And it's like information overwhelm and decision fatigue overwhelm. And like, what do I do? Focus on the micro moments of impact. If you do that, you'll be fine everywhere else, genuinely. So like an event, right? We're usually so focused on like, how do I fill the room? Oh my gosh, we need to make more ticket sales because we're under budget and the vendors are charging even more than I was expecting. And it's like, we're running out of time. And it's like, yes, I hear you. And what is the customer experience going to be like at the event? Let's start there. I want it to be such that when somebody comes to my event, the second they walk into the hotel venue, they feel the difference. They are greeted by a team member who has memorized their face and name and details about them. Dawn, oh my gosh, give me a hug. It's so great to see you here. Moment of impact. Hey, we know that you have these food allergies, and tonight I know we have this thing. I wanted you to know that we've taken care of it. I will personally come up and guide you when the time is right to let you know where your meals are. Moment of impact. When they check into their room and they go into their, their own living quarters and they're putting their suitcase away, is there a card, a handwritten card sitting on the bedside waiting for them that lets them know how much it genuinely means to us that they spent their time, money, and energy with us, and we're not going to let them down? Moment of impact. It's like whatever it is. And maybe if you're holding 1,000-person event, you can't do all of those things, or maybe you can. And maybe you've just given yourself an excuse that you can't. But when we look at the customer experience side and we make those decisions first, then all we need to do is go out and share with people what the vision is for the event. Hey, Phil, when you come to my event, I just want to let you know what you can expect. You can expect that when you get out of your Uber or your Lyft, that one of my team members is going to be right there to greet you. We are so excited at the opportunity to serve you during these next few days. And then we're going to welcome you into the lobby. We're going to make sure that you're very clear on the agenda for the day. When you go into your room, we have a little special treat for you because we value you. And we know that there's a lot of different ways that you could have chosen to spend your time, money, and energy. And we're so grateful to have you here. And then on the second day, this is what you can expect. And on the third day, this is what you can expect. And by the time you're done with the whole experience, it's going to be like any event that you've ever been to. And all you have to do is you don't have to sell them. You just have to tell them what you've created. And because it's so cool, because you're meeting all of their needs, they're like, sign me up. Can I bring a few people to come with me? Yeah, in fact, we should give you a table and let's have you fill the whole table with your people. What would that be like? And even if we wanted to do a separate breakout room, where you could have a debrief discussion with your people, if there's something we can facilitate to better meet your needs at this conference, please let me know. I'd be happy to have that conversation with you. So it's like, to me, it always starts with those moments of impact, Phil, and just that's the fun, creative, playful part anyway. And then you just share people what that vision is and let them come in.
I love it. Definitely you and I have read from similar places and experienced similar things. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Some of the things that you're describing there are spontaneous in that you've trained yourself and your team to look for opportunities to make an impact as micro impacts, and some of them are pre-planned. Have you discovered there's certain pre-planned impactful moments that make the biggest difference, or does it kind of just depend on the journey of the event that you're planning?
I'm actually going to say this comes first and foremost with your core values.
Okay.
And so in the book, Infinite Impact, there is a very simple, uncomplicated, fast exercise to help you identify the core values of the event. Now, sometimes that's going to mirror the core values of the business. Mine does. It doesn't have to. You can come up with a different core value set for the event, but these become your guideposts, right? It's your decision-making filter. So for example, one of my core values is that we are better together. Another one is unwavering excellence. Another one is lean in. Another one is deeply fulfilled, right? So I have these core values and I think, how can I prove better together at this event? And how can I prove unwavering excellence at this event? And all of a sudden it gives you like this perceptual filter to narrow your focus. Because if I have a fire walking ceremony, just because Tony Robbins did it and some other people did it, and I guess I should be doing it right because that's cool, that's what people want, but it actually goes against my core values of putting people in that emotional environment, then it could have a real serious negative effect on my event. Or it's not going to get enough traction in my marketing because I'm out of alignment. So I'm going to suggest that your core values need to happen first, and really also understanding who you're trying to get into the audience, what are their specific needs, then the experiences unfold from there. So like one of the things that I thought was pretty cool at our last event is the very opening of the event was not just the MC coming out or some like rah rah hype you up video. My team created a video that there was an audio overlay of me sharing a snippet or two from the book, something that was really like calming and grounded and wise to set the tone for the event. And then what you saw was we got a clip of all of the different attendees. We scoured social media and found video clips of them on stages or in a podcast or just an Instagram reel. And with most of them, we kept their the video on mute and my audio just overlaid. As you can see, Roderick on stage and Tammy and her reel and Bahare coming in. And then in some instances, we would pause my audio and open up the audio and the video of one of the participants that was mirroring a similar message to what my audio overlay was. So it was this outrageous bit, and it was only a couple minutes long. But why I did that, why I made that choice, Phil, is because I wanted each attendee to feel seen, heard, and valued before a single word was uttered on stage. I wanted them to know that I cared enough to go out and do the research and find the clips and put them together, because their choice to be at this event mattered greatly to me. And that was like minute 1 and 2 of the event. So there's like, I could give you a zillion examples and I'd love to. It's just, I think it comes out of your core values.
Yeah. Someone watching that is going to both feel deeply impacted because you noticed them, and they're going to be thinking, man, they went to a lot of trouble.
Yeah. And we did.
That
it was worth it.
Really would have taken probably tens of hours to scour it and put it together, because you wanted to create that moment, which started with your values, which I want to like lean into that for a minute, because in the book, you talk about these foundational questions that we need to ask, which starts with your avatar and then your vision, your why, and your values. You have a little bit different take on that than in traditional business books. And I wonder if you could maybe elaborate on how you tackle those questions, and then we'll apply it to a little bit more to how that relates to an event.
Yeah, actually, this is really important for an event, because when we host an event, we think of the audience. We think of all of the seats that we need to fill to hit our goals. So I don't care if it's 50 people or 5,000 people, right? It's just like the number, it's the volume, it's the audience. I'm actually proposing that we put that aside for a moment and really narrow our focus into who is the one individual that is going to represent the audience that we want in this room. And it's not a demographic. It's not like, oh, well, they're between 35 and 65 with 2.5 children, right? That's demographics and it's averages. And when you go out to market, how you market to a 35-year-old part-time stay-at-home mom is different than you would market to a 65-year-old man who's facing retirement. Right. And in order to meet both of their needs, you have to market very generally. Hey, come to my event because it's going to be great. Versus if you narrow your focus down into an avatar and you get into the psychographics, like what are they really thinking and feeling, especially right now in the world? Are you kidding me? We are faced with so much uncertainty, so much to do, so many pressures, so much responsibility. So if we zero in on the avatar, mine is named Heather, and I can get into her psyche and understand exactly why she needs to attend this event, because it's going to be so good for her well-being. She's going to pluck out of her treadmill sprinting life. She's going to be able to take care of herself and be able to think for a gosh darn minute. She's going to be able to get recharged. She's going to experience belonging. And she's going to be valued and taken care of in this room. She doesn't have to make the decisions because I'm going to make the decisions for her, right? On and on and on. Well, now that I know who my avatar is, I can go into the marketplace and speak specifically. Hey, do you feel like your life is just so busy that you're just making all of these decisions? You don't even have time for yourself. You probably might not even feel belonging right now in your life. That's what this event is for. We want you to come in, and here's what it's going to be about. So it's the specificity that the avatar exercise gives you that enables you to fill the audience based on everybody that is feeling and thinking those similar things, which, by the way, did you notice in my pitch there, like everybody's like, yeah, I feel that. Exactly. Right. It just gets us there faster. Whereas vision, a little bit what we spoke about earlier.
Let me interrupt you for a second before you get to vision.
Please.
So when you're defining Heather, the avatar, is she still an amalgamation of people, or is she based on a real person? Or how are you telling the story of getting really clear on Heather, her desires, her felt needs, her pains, all the things that you're describing there, which you're shaking your head. So I'm going to guess you're going to say, no, she's an amalgamation, or she's a made up person.
I made her up. Yeah. 12 years ago, 15 years ago, excuse me. I made her up, and I used my intuition. So it's not our brain that says, yeah, but we need clients that have the most money to afford our services, right? It's like, that's your brain, the logical reasoning one. I'm talking about your gut instincts, the one that when you're driving down the road and you take a left, your gut says, I think I was supposed to take a right back there. Right. Yeah. You have no evidence of that, but there's a message that's come through. That's the one you listen to for your avatar. It's like our intelligence system in there, not reasoning. This is the thing that confuses us all day long. So
I do the same exercise. I do find traditional marketers don't like going into the conjecture. They want to just focus on, well, we know this from the data that she's 35 and 50, and she lives probably in the Western United States, and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, let's go further. Let's try to understand what's she thinking about when she's making the trip. She probably is leaving kids behind. She's probably thinking about whoever's taking care of the kids when she gets there. Maybe she needs a moment to call home, or maybe she needs a gift that she can actually get for the kids and take them back home to the kids. Like, let's think about what is on her mind so that she can be at peace when she gets there. So I love that you did that. Just for the sake of time, let's move forward. Let's talk about vision and the why and the stuff like that that you talked
about. And one follow-up just briefly on avatar is that the pushback that I get is, but Amber, I don't only want women in my conference. It's like, I know that. Like, it's the specificity of the language that's going to get you the widest possible audience who are all activated because of what you have said, expressing their innermost thoughts and feelings that they weren't expecting. And that is how you're going to get the mix that you want. Just like, even though my avatar is Heather, 70% of my clients are men. So you don't have to worry about that. And there's more details in the book that support that. Even if you have the question of, I think I have multiple avatars. Like 1% of people have multiple avatars. So there's a lot of information you can dig into the book. And this is what it looks like. It's so pretty.
It is.
Vision. Instead of like, I want to be the most sought after agency in the world, right? Like, we are conditioned to have these big, hairy, audacious goals, but they're so big that we kind of somewhere inside think it's BS and we're never going to hit that goal. But I guess I was supposed to do it, so I threw it out there. So we're not even attached to our own visions. Like, how sad is that? So what I propose is we go down into the micro vision. And we've already talked about that. So that would be that tiny moment of impact that you can make to your avatar at this event, so that the entire event, they feel the summation of that. So for example, my big vision is to help individuals feel heard, seen, and valued. That's it. That's my new big, hairy, audacious goal. And guess what? Now that I have that specificity, well, Phil, I can go into every single Zoom room I'm in, on any stage, at any conference, put on any event, and I am confident I'm going to achieve my vision, which builds my confidence. It builds my creativity. It builds my innovation. It builds more results in the end. So We just need to get more specific in vision than we've been taught. If vision is how I'm in service to my audience, the why is how is that in service back to me? And in this event, it's the business, or like in this example, it's the business as opposed to maybe an individual, right? It could be the business owner maybe. But for example, if my vision is to help Heather feel heard, seen, and valued, when I put on an event and make her feel that, it fills me up so much that I feel heard, seen, and valued in return, which is actually meeting an unmet need that I personally have. And it lights me up and activates me to give that much more. It's like a natural energy source. So I'm not pushing and forcing outcomes that are transactional. I'm now engaging in a mutual, reciprocative, harmonious relationship. Congruence between me and my audience is achieved. So it's avatar, vision, and why that get an entrepreneur or an individual or a business or an event or a program in alignment. Whereas the core values, the final piece of the foundational 4 framework, the values is what helps you stay in alignment because they're your guardrails, your decision-making filters. And those are the 4 pillars. I just teach them a little bit differently so we can get down to the root of it instead of always operating at the surface and wondering why we're not getting better results.
What's interesting, and I know that another event might have a different vision than what you described, but if someone feels heard, seen, and valued, they're going to be in a position to receive a whole lot more.
Yeah.
And that's
guarded.
Yeah, they will drop their guard. They're gonna open their position up. They're gonna open their heart and their mind to the relationships, to the possibilities of what can happen. And so in that simple vision, you've actually created something super powerful because your content may be about something super technical or whatever it might be, but you've
And
put
mine
people,
is.
yeah, yours is, but you've put them in a posture because you've been taking care of them in all these micro moments. And then you've said, this is really what I want. If Heather walks away feeling heard, seen, and valued, I know she's going to have a great experience. It's going to have a ripple effect that's way beyond my imagination. Her life might be unlocked. She might impact hundreds or thousands of other people. I may never hear about it, or I might. Doesn't matter. That's what I'm hearing you say. Is that fair?
100%, man. It's like, can you come with me everywhere I go? This is amazing.
I told you we are like, brother and sister of a different.
Love it. Thank you. Yeah, that's perfect.
Absolutely. All right. So overcoming resistance is something that you talk about. And let's talk about it from the standpoint of an event owner or an event leader. Because obviously your attendees have their own resistance, but let's talk about the resistance that you have as you're thinking about the event. How do you think about that? How do you overcome it?
Well, a lot of my stuff comes up around visibility. So it's actually hard for me to be heard and seen, which is why that's part of my vision. So when I know that I need to go out and enroll for my event, my garbage comes up. And I'm like, I don't want it. Can somebody else do it for me? Where's the easy button? And that's just a part of who I am. And it will always be there. And that's okay. There's a gift in that for me. And it's the gift of connection because I can pull on that thread of discomfort and remember that Heather also has that discomfort. And the way through it is just by sharing openly and honestly with her. Now we have connection and she moves forward. So when it comes time for me to open enrollment for an event, the resistance comes up. I first have to become aware of it instead of pushing it down and pretending it's not there and shooing it away and avoiding it, which is never healthy. It always blows up in your face when you do that. So I have to acknowledge it. I have to acknowledge where that fear or icky feeling comes from. Oh, it's because in the past, there were a whole bunch of times that I opened my mouth and I got punished as a result, whatever it was. I could give you a zillion examples. And so I've created this belief that if I use my voice, bad things happen. Meaning if I tell people about my event, here's my irrational fear. If I tell people about my event, they're going to throw stones at me. And my whole, your mind goes irrational and all of these worries pop up. So that's so unproductive. I have an exercise in the book called the Courage to Course Correct. And what it does is it helps me see where the evidence I have collected, see where it comes from, like decades ago. Then I can see the negative impact on my life if I continue to believe that's true. Meaning, I believe that if I try to promote this event, nobody's going to sign up. So I'm just not going to do it. And the cost of not doing it is I've lost money. I feel like garbage for not, fulfilling my vision. I'm not helping people. I'm not blah, 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 blah. Well, that wouldn't feel very good either. So then I shift out of that and I look at the other side of the evidence I've collected. Are there times anywhere in my life where I'm heard and seen and a good thing happens? Well, actually, if I'm being honest, Phil, ever since I was 20, right? 20 years, more years now by one than the years that I had collected bad evidence, right? So now I just need to look at, yeah, dang, every time I open my mouth, somebody is impacted somewhere. Okay, well, that's really what I'm in it for, is the impact and the connection and the relationships and the belonging. So I guess I could look at recent evidence, which tells me if I promote this event, people will come. And when I shift into that mindset, my resistance goes dormant, it goes away. And all of a sudden, I can just openly and honestly self-express to Heather about the vision, the little micro vision, the things, and I'll just educate her, not sell in an icky way and force and pressure it, but just, hey, I'd love to invite you over to this. Here's what I'm up to. Here's where I think it would add value to your life. It would be so fun to connect and have you there. And all of a sudden, she's like, oh my gosh, this sounds like everything I've needed. More good evidence gets collected, it's deposited, I sell out my event, I'm feeling good and fulfilled, and then I go rock the house at the event. So that resistance can absolutely come up in salespeople and event organizers and business owners and the people that are even coming. And I'm so happy for the opportunity that we can almost normalize this a little bit, air it out through your platform, Phil, because there are things that we can do to kind of course correct and move on and fill our events.
Well, and I'm just thinking about, in my instance where maybe I've got this really creative idea of how I want to serve Heather, but it's non-traditional. And I've had no said to me many times before, because some of the people out here run events maybe for somebody else, and it's been shot down so many times. But if you're clear on how this is going to help Heather feel seen, heard, and valued, and for a fact this is going to help her be in that position, and that's going to have a direct effect on the impact on her life, and therefore all the Heathers who are coming, then it's a lot easier to fight for it and fight the good side of the word. And so then you're like, you drop your own concern for yourself, just like I know you have a kid and I've got kids, and if they get in trouble, you forget about what's smart and what's danger, because you're going to go in there and fight for them. And it sounds to me like part of what you're saying is get really clear on Heather, your vision of how you're trying to serve her. And then all of a sudden the problem is her and not you. And I think self-sabotage rises because we get so focused on ourselves and not who we're trying to serve. I don't know if I'm saying that.
And I'd love to give another example. You said non-traditional. I'll tell you something very non-traditional that I do at my books and business event. When we first open, I'll come out for 10 minutes and drop into something that's like usually a pretty deep story, something that's a vulnerable first-time admission. And that sets the tone. But then I immediately require every single attendee to come up on stage by themselves and deliver a 3-minute speech. That is the beginning of our event. And it usually takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours for everybody in the room to cycle through their 3-minute speeches. And there are so many reasons that I'm doing this, because I know Heather is going to be scared out of her brain. She is not going to want to come up on stage. But I know the breakthrough that's on the other side of that for her. If she can come up on stage and use her voice and be seen and watch as everybody else holds her and loves her and connects with her, that's the experience I want Heather to have at my event. It creates psychological safety in the room instantaneously. all egos drop. You could hear a feather drop in the room. It's like everybody is so open and so wanting to support each other through this scary moment. And on the other side of this, people are in tears. They're saying that was not at all what I came on stage to say. But by the time I was there, something else took over and I just shared whatever came out. And it was like standing ovations and people were like, oh my God, I needed to hear that. That was amazing. Like you can do these really unique, interesting things in your event if you have your avatar in mind and you're really in service to the vision, mine, heard, seen, and valued. I look at my values of better together. Now we've all gone through this group experience. We've come out on the other side, and this is the first 2 hours of my event. It's like a fireworks show for the rest of the event. And my renewal rate is off. It's ridiculous. It's like over 80%, both every time I do the event. I'm doing the next one at the end of September in Denver. And there's just all of these very thoughtful reasons why we do what we do. It's just in service.
And that's probably your equivalent of coal walking, fire walking.
Yeah.
But it's in service of where you're trying to put people. Like Tony's trying to get people to this point of courage and doing something they never would have imagined themselves doing. I'm guessing. I've never done it before, but
I don't want to do that. I have no interest. That or walking on glass, just not interested.
But you know what? People are more afraid of standing on stage than they are of walking on fire. So
they're terrified.
You're actually asking them to do something that is many people's worst fear in life. They'd rather die.
And then what I do to make it worse, Phil, is I have 3 cameramen videotaping them and a roaming photographer, because what I want is I want to capture that moment so they never forget it. And I give each attendee the video and photo footage after the event. And here's to even further prove the point. My choice to do that made the event exponentially more expensive, way more expensive to host. And it was worth every freaking penny, man, because the impact that Heather has and what that does to her being able to get out into the world. And it comes back, like she'll hire me for her book launch or whatever. She'll hire me to come up with a sales strategy, or she'll just be a great friend or a great promoter. I don't have to worry about that. That's not my job to worry about that. My job is to be in service to her in every single moment. And it just works out unbelievably well.
Tell me a story of a Heather who stepped up on that stage and maybe was one of the more fearful people that you can remember. And then what happened at the rest of the event because she did that? Like, what did that make possible for Heather at your event?
Yeah, somebody instantly popped in, and I could tell you tons of stories, but this particular woman was daring to think about launching a book and starting a platform to help other people heal. And she almost didn't make it to the event because she was terrified of even putting herself out here in this way. And she showed up, and I loved on her because I knew she was terrified, and I just kept pouring in and pouring in. And she was one of the last people to walk up on stage during the 3-minute speeches. And she was up there literally doing this. You could hear the paper and you could see it so visibly from in the back of the room. And she was just so terrified to tell people her story. And I don't think there was a dry eye in that whole room, Phil. I mean, instant compassion. Because we all know the feeling of fear, and we try to cover it up and hide it and pretend. And she had an inability to do that. And everybody in that room, just remembering it, was just sending this energy frequency of pure love and support and just holding her. She ended up speaking for like 6 or 7 minutes, way past the 3. Nobody cared. And at the other end, as soon as she was finally done, she got off stage and she saw me right there waiting for her. And I just gave her the biggest longest hug. I waited for her to let go of that embrace. And I didn't really care if the rest of the audience had to wait 25 minutes. I mean, it was probably like 3 long minutes, but I just held her to let her know, you're good, you're safe, you did it. And now, like throughout the rest of the event, everybody was like best friends with her. Since then, multiple people have become strategic partners with her. And now they're doing there's a program going out to Brown University. She started her own community. She's monetizing. She launched her book. And now she's becoming a certified guide in infinite impact because she believes in it so much that she wants to do alignment sessions for other groups and communities and individuals. And it's like, she is so confident now. It's like, there she goes. There she goes. Ah. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
And that event would have been worth it for her.
Yeah.
Right?
Everybody in the room. Yeah. I mean, and my goal as an event organizer is how do I get that experience for every single person? And I have so many different ways that I create that over my event's only a day and a half, Phil. It's not that long. But I make sure that when people leave that room, they are on the highest high. They know, like they have the confidence, they have the relationships, they have the results. It's like they're ready to go. They're activated to the nth degree. But that's my commitment to Heather. You know, it's my work in the world.
It truly sounds like you're unlocking the life of someone, or to put it in Lord of the Rings terms, I don't know if you remember King Theodos, I think is his name, who was covered with all the webs and listening to the lies of Wormtongue. And then Gandalf comes in and breaks the curse, and that all falls off. It sounds like in a certain way, you're creating that for people. You're having this unlock experience where they walk on fearful and they're walking out, you know, not like, you know, I don't want to make it sound miraculous, but there is a sense of miracle going on there.
It is. And I am uniquely qualified to be in this role because been there. I will never forget the first time I had to speak in front of a group, and it was a 90-minute group interview trying to recruit college students to sell Cutco cutlery, high-end kitchen knives. And I was 18 years old, and I'm sitting here in a room full of 25 other students my age, and I'm holding up this huge, you know, thick packet, and I'm shaking the whole time, so uncomfortable to be there. I know those fears. And I know that those fears come from feeling completely worthless and rejected and abandoned and afraid and isolated and worthless. That's where it comes from. And I know those feelings. So I know the feeling of courage to get up to do that interview to begin with. Then I know the courage to keep practicing every day, day in, day out, practicing courage, practicing showing up, talking, using my voice, exercising, undoing 20 years of foundational root beliefs and conditioning. Because I have this tiny calling inside that says, there's something significant in you and it wants to come out and play, but you can only have that happen if you keep strength training and exercising that voice. So Phil, fast forward all of these years later, Monday morning in a couple days, I walk out on stage at the Grand Opry Hotel in Nashville in front of 2,000 entrepreneurs.
Wow.
And, you know, there's this feeling of tremendous, like, oh my God, and then there's this other side of me that's like, no, you're equipped. You know what to say. You're uniquely qualified to guide this message. So when it comes to the Heather in the audience, I could pull her through that experience confidently and safely because been there, except the only difference is I took the long, hard, painful journey to figure out how to get here. Now I can expedite that for everybody else around me who's struggling with something similar. And with the event planners specifically, you may not know or have any relationship to what I'm even talking about. You might just be this naturally confident ops type of person that's, really great at tracking details and managing a bunch of different things. You're like a little Energizer bunny. And this may not apply to you at all, but guaranteed you will have speakers that have fears, even if they're not showing it. Guaranteed you'll have audience members that are afraid to be in big crowds. They have social anxiety. So this is your time to hear this information and meet their needs anyway, even if you can't completely relate to it.
Well, every person coming in needs some kind of impact. Some people have more fears and concerns walking in than others, but I think every person who walks through the door needs the psychological safety that you're talking about and is looking for that impact. It's easy to coast through our lives, through our careers, through the things we do and be satisfied with modest progress. And when you talk about infinite, at first I read that title of your books, like that's really, daring to use a word,
Yeah.
because infinite, how could you possibly have infinite? We're human, we're finite. But I'm now understanding what you're talking about is when this happens over and over and over through the course of one's life, the multiplicative effect is indeed infinite in terms
It's
of the power.
generational.
Yeah.
Think about what I pour into my son and what you pour into your children.
Mhm.
That goes beyond our lifetime. And then
100%.
Clay passes that down to his children, who then pass that down to their children until somebody breaks the generational chain, which is, I think, my role in my family. I had to break some negative infinite impact spirals that were spiraling out of control, and I had to stop them. And then infuse it with something that was more positive and helpful and nurturing. But now Clay, it's unbelievable, Phil, to watch this 7-year-old exist in the world and seeing how different his experience is compared to mine. He literally yelled at me one day, Phil, because he says, "Mom, I don't like it that you pick me up at school right when the bell rings. I want to be picked up last so I can play with my friends." And I was like, what? I remember being the last to get picked up and hating every single minute of it, and so pissed off that my mom wouldn't pick me up right when the bell rung because I was so miserable at school. I had no friends. I wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. And now my son is yelling at me for picking him up on time. Like, what? How safe he feels in the world and the impact that he's sharing with his friends, for example. I mean, that's what I mean by infinite. It really has an ability to carry on well beyond our lifetimes.
Yeah. Fantastic. You are giving me, I don't think I knew this was possible, but you are giving me an even greater sense of hope of the power of an event as a container where these kind of experiences can happen. It can happen in a conversation like you and I are having. It can happen over breakfast at a meal, but there's something unique where you've had time to prepare for it at an
Yeah.
event and you're watching it happen to the people around you, whether it's 8 people, 800 or 8,000. It can happen in such a big way. And it's a safe place. It can be a safe place for that to happen. And it's a place where you're escaping some of those everyday pressures so that maybe slow down that progress. And so I love all that you're sharing. We're unfortunately out of time here. Let's talk just for a minute about your book. People can go get the book at this website, infiniteimpactbook.com. And on that site, you mentioned that there is a place they can download the PDF for free.
I know I'm non-traditional once again. This is not common practice, but if you scroll down like 30% on the page, there's a gold button where you can click to download the entire full color PDF of the book for free. There's not even an opt-in wall. I don't care about that. What I care about is that you do the work. And what I care about is that you impact people. So if a price tag is a barrier, if an opt-in wall is a barrier, I want no barriers, no excuses. I want you to do the work. And then I want you to tell me what comes up for you. So as an event planner, an individual, and an entrepreneur listening to this, do the work and send me your exercises. I will actually respond. I just did this morning to somebody. I sent him a 25-minute Loom video going through his answers and pouring into him. He's not a client. He's not trying to pay me for anything. It's my service. It is my role in this world to help people through this time. So take advantage of that and spew it out into the land. If you want to give the PDF as a gift in your event, do it. You have my express permission to run ads campaigns to it if you want to, right? Just get it out into the world. That's fine.
That's amazing. And you also mentioned on your other website, your main business site, that there's a place to schedule a call to pick your brain. Many event leaders and business leaders don't like that term of pick your brain, but you actually said you want people to do that.
Yeah. So NGNG, it stands for No Guts, No Glory. That's my company, NGNG Enterprises. And forever I've been doing strategic planning and consulting. And I was talking to a CEO who has a team and they're running an event in October in Beverly Hills. And we had a consult and I said, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? I mean, I even created a new revenue center for them by suggesting they do a small, simple membership on the back side of the event as a retention tool to drive people and keep them interested and accountable until their next event. So I'm coming in from the customer experience. How do we market? How do we actually structure the event so that there's psychological safety and connection? How do we elevate the experience? How do we get our highest possible conversion on the other side so that we're upselling to the next event or a membership or something else? And I'm just here as a strategist for anybody who's listening that wants to even have like a 1-hour call to dig into your event. I'd be honored to help shape the event industry more than I am right now. That'd be great.
And I will promise you, if you do that, that Amber will show up with intention when you come to the call, because that's just who she is.
I'll prove it.
Now you're on the hooks. You have to do it. People are going to be expecting that. So I promised at the start of the conversation that we would end with a special moment that's just for you, but everybody gets to listen. So I'd love for you to tell me a couple of words that stand out from our conversation. And one of them needs to be an emotional word that you can give me.
That's the only way I think, Phil. So that's not hard. I think and breathe in my emotions. Honestly, there are two words that popped up instantly. One was pride and one was gratitude. And I was actually really surprised that pride popped up, but I found myself in this experience with you just feeling really proud of the decisions I'm making and the work I'm doing in the world. And this is coming from somebody that doesn't like to boast or brag. I don't like, I tend to have a history of shooing those things away, but honestly, I'm proud and I'm filled with gratitude that I can even be here in this moment with you and have this experience. It was awesome.
And as you're feeling proud and grateful, I'm seeing happiness like on your face. Like there's a joy and a delight in that. Is that fair?
Yes.
Like it feels light to me.
Yeah, it is.
Not a burden about it. It's like freeing to you.
I feel free. I feel very free. Yeah.
That's going to be where I go here. So here's my, whatever I call it.
You're going to make me cry my eyes out. It's like right there.
Closing moment. Here we go.
You're the best. Just the best.
As are you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this. We will have this available on YouTube and in the podcast later. Amber, thank you for being with us.
This was the best. Thanks, Phil.
You bet.